Guardian Tor moved through the dark halls like a shadow made of stone. His four arms hung loose at his sides, each hand ready to grab a weapon if needed. The night shift meant quiet time on New Harmony Station, but quiet never meant safe. Not when you worked for Ambassador Wraith. The rich smell of exotic foods still hung in the air from dinner. Important guests had eaten well tonight. Tor had watched them laugh and make deals while servants cleaned up their mess. That was how things worked here. The powerful ate while others served. Tor's heavy boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he walked past the guest rooms. All secure. The ambassador's private office showed green lights on every sensor. The vault where Wraith kept his most valuable items stayed locked tight. Everything looked normal, but something felt wrong. Tor had learned to trust his feelings during 20 years as a guardian. His people, the hegemony, trained their soldiers well. They taught them to notice things others missed. Right now, his mind kept going back to the servant quarters. He had checked there earlier. The human staff slept in small rooms with thin walls. Most aliens on the station thought humans were weak and boring. Tor used to think the same thing. Humans worked hard jobs for little pay. They never caused trouble. They seemed happy just to survive. Tonight felt different. Tor turned down a side hall that led to the storage areas. His night vision picked up heat traces on the walls. Someone had been here recently. The traces led to a room used for cleaning supplies. He pressed his palm against the door control. It opened with a quiet hiss. What he saw inside made him stop, breathing. A human female lay on the bare metal floor. She had curled up like she was trying to stay warm. Her dark hair spread across a folded jacket she used as a pillow. Her work clothes looked old and patched. One hand rested on something small and shiny. Tor stepped closer and felt his heart skip. A baby dragon slept against the human's chest. Its scales caught the dim light from the hall and threw back tiny rainbows. Each breath made the scales glow a little brighter. The creature was no bigger than Tor's fist, but he knew what it was. Dragons were supposed to be dead. All of them. Tor's own people had made sure of that 3 years ago. The hegemony had called it a necessary action. Dragons were dangerous, they said. They attacked peaceful worlds and killed innocent people. The galaxy was safer without them, but this tiny thing looked nothing like the monsters from the war reports. It made small, happy sounds as it slept. Its little claws held onto the human shirt like a child holding a blanket. The human stirred. Her eyes opened and found Tor standing over her. Most people would scream when they woke up to find a hegemony, guardian in their room. This human just sat up slowly and moved her body to block the dragon from view. "Please," she whispered. Her voice shook, but her eyes stayed steady. "He's just a baby. He hasn't hurt anyone." Tor said nothing. He studied the human's face. She had the look of someone who worked too hard and ate too little. Her hands showed cuts and burns from cleaning chemicals. But her eyes held something Tor had not expected to see. Love. Pure and simple love for the small creature she protected. "What is your name?" Tor asked. "Kira." She pulled the dragon closer. "I know what you're thinking. I know what I'm supposed to do. Turn him in. Get a reward. Maybe earn enough to buy my way off this station." "But you have not done this." Kira shook her head. "Look at him. Really look. Does he seem dangerous to you?" Tor looked down at the baby dragon. It had woken up when Kira moved. Big golden eyes stared up at him without fear. The creature made a soft chirping sound and reached one tiny claw toward Tor's hand. "He likes you," Kira said with surprise. "He usually hides when strangers come near." Tor had seen many things in his life as a guardian. He had fought in battles across dozen worlds. He had protected diplomats and merchants and war criminals. He thought he understood how the galaxy worked, but this small scene confused him. "Where? Did you find him?" Tor asked. "The cargo bay. 3 weeks ago. Someone had hidden him in a food shipment. He was starving and scared." Kira's voice got softer. "I couldn't leave him there to die." "You could have sold him. Dragon scales are worth more than most people make in a lifetime." I thought about it. Kira looked down at the dragon. For about 5 seconds. Then he looked at me the same way he's looking at you now, like he trusted me to do the right thing. Tor remembered the reports from the Dragon War. His commanders had shown pictures of burned cities and dead soldiers. They said dragons were killing machines that lived only to destroy. But those reports never mentioned baby dragons that chirped and played and trusted strangers. "Are you going to tell Ambassador Wraith?" Kira asked. Tor should say yes. His duty was clear. Report the illegal creature. Let his superiors decide what to do next. That was how the system worked. That was how he had always worked. But looking at Kira and the dragon, Tor felt something crack inside his chest. Something old and hard that he had carried for years. "Not tonight," he heard himself say. Kira's eyes went wide. "What?" I said not. "Tonight." Tor knelt down so he was closer to their level. The dragon reached out again, and this time Tor let the tiny claws touch his finger. The contact sent a warm feeling up his arm. "But this cannot continue. Tomorrow the ambassador hosts important guests. They will bring scanners that can detect any living thing on the station. Then we have to get him out of here." "We?" Kira met his eyes. "You said not tonight. That means you're not going to turn us in. That makes you part of this whether you want to be or not." Tor stared at her. In his 20 years as a guardian, no one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever assumed he would help them break the rules. Most people feared him too much, to even look at him directly. But this small human sat on a cold floor with a creature that could get her killed, and she talked to him like they were partners planning something together. Maybe they were. Sleep did not come easily for Tor that night. He lay in his quarters, staring at the metal ceiling and thinking about golden eyes that looked at him with trust. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the baby dragon reaching toward his hand. Mind kept going back to the Kepler 7 mission, 3 years ago. The final battle of the Dragon War. Tor had been part of the assault team that landed on the Dragon homeworld. His commanders called it a liberation mission. They said the dragons had enslaved other species and built their power on fear and destruction. The hegemony was bringing peace to an oppressed galaxy. But when Tor's boots hit the ground on Kepler 7, he had not found slave camps or weapons factories. He found crystal cities that sang in the wind. He found gardens that grew food for dozens of different species. He found schools where dragon children learned alongside young aliens from across the galaxy. Then the orbital bombardment began. Tor shook his head and sat up. Remembering Kepler 7 always made his stomach hurt. He had followed orders. He had done his duty. But seeing that baby dragon brought back questions he had buried deep. What if the reports were wrong? What if dragons were not the monsters the hegemony said they were? A soft chime told him morning shift was starting. Time to report to Ambassador Wraith for the daily briefing. Time to pretend everything was normal. Tor put on his armor and weapons belt. In the mirror, he looked like the same guardian who had served the hegemony for 20 years. But something inside him felt different. Something had changed when tiny claws touched his finger. Ambassador Wraith waited in his office, surrounded by floating data screens. The alien looked like a giant insect made of black metal and sharp edges. His 4 eyes moved independently as he read reports from across the galaxy. Tor. Good. We have much to discuss today. Wraith's voice sounded like grinding gears. High Command arrives this afternoon. They want a full security briefing before tonight's dinner. Of course, Ambassador, the station is secure. Is it? Wraith turned 2 eyes toward Tor while the other. 2 kept reading. I have heard rumors. Small things. Food going missing from the kitchens. Strange heat signatures in the lower levels. Unauthorized access to maintenance areas. Tor kept his face blank. I will investigate these reports immediately. See that you do. High Command does not tolerate sloppy security. They are here to discuss the final phase of the expansion project. Nothing must go wrong. The expansion project. Tor knew what that meant. More worlds like Kepler-7. More species that would disappear because they stood in the hegemony's way. There is one more thing. Wraith pulled up a new data screen. Intelligence reports suggest dragon survivors may still exist, hidden on remote worlds or smuggled onto neutral stations. High Command has authorized maximum rewards for any information leading to their capture. Tor's blood went cold. Survivors? I thought all dragons were eliminated. So did we. But life finds a way to hide in dark corners. That is why High Command is bringing their new scanning equipment, devices that can detect dragon genetics from 3 levels away. Wraith's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. If any of those creatures are on my station, we will find them. Tor nodded and left the office with his mind racing. 3 hours until High Command arrived. 3 hours to figure out how to save Kira and the baby dragon from scanners that could see through walls. He found Kira in the main kitchen preparing food for the evening dinner. She worked next to a team of other human servants, chopping vegetables and mixing spices. Her movements looked normal, but Tor could see the tension in her shoulders. Their eyes met for just a moment. Kira gave a tiny nod toward the supply closet. 5 minutes later, Tor entered the closet to find Kira waiting with the dragon hidden in her apron. The little creature had grown since last night. His scales looked brighter and his eyes seemed more alert. Something's wrong, Kira said before Tor could speak. The other staff are talking. Security teams have been asking questions about missing food and strange sounds in the walls. It gets worse. High Command arrives in 3 hours with scanning equipment that will detect him instantly. Kira's face went pale. Then we're out of time. There might be a way. Tor looked down at the dragon, who was trying to climb out of Kira's apron. The old mining tunnels beneath the station. They were sealed years ago, but some maintenance shafts still connect to them. The rock might block the scanners. Might? It is the only chance I can think of. Kira lifted the dragon and held him against her chest. Then that's what we do. When? Now, before High Command's advance team starts their security sweep. They left the closet separately. Tor used his authority to reassign patrol routes, clearing the path to the lower levels. Kira slipped away during the lunch rush when the kitchen was too busy for anyone to notice one missing worker. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for Tor's shoulders. He crawled through the cramped space while listening to Kira and the dragon moving behind him. The little creature made worried sounds that echoed in the metal tunnel. It's okay, Flint, Kira whispered. We're almost there. Flint. She had given the dragon a name. The tunnel opened into a vast cave that had been carved out by mining equipment decades ago. Tor's flashlight showed rough stone walls and puddles of water from leaking pipes above. The air smelled stale but breathable. This should block their scanners, Tor said as they climbed down into the cave. But you cannot stay here long. Maybe a few hours at most. What happens after that? Tor did not answer. He was still trying to figure that out himself. They found a dry spot near the far wall where Kira could sit with Flint in her lap. The dragon seemed to like the cave. His scales glowed brighter, casting dancing lights on the stone walls. Tor. Kira's voice made him turn around. Why are you helping us? It was a good question. Tor had been asking himself the same thing all day. On Kepler-7, I saw dragon cities before we destroyed them. They were beautiful, full of life and learning and cooperation between species. Nothing like the war reports claimed. You were there? During the attack? I followed orders. I did what I was trained to do. Tor sat down on a rock across from them. But I never forgot what those cities looked like before they burned. Flint made a chirping sound and stretched one claw toward Tor. Without thinking, Tor reached out and let the dragon grab his finger again. That same warm feeling spread up his arm. "He trusts you," Kira said softly. "Dragons are supposed to be good judges of character. Maybe he sees something in you that you don't see in yourself yet." Tor looked into the dragon's golden eyes and wondered if that could be true. Maybe there was still time to make different choices. Maybe it was not too late to be the guardian he should have been all along. The cave shook as 3 hegemony warships docked with New Harmony Station. Tor felt the vibration through the rock walls and knew their time was running out faster than expected. "They're early," he told Kira, who was trying to keep Flint calm. The dragon had started glowing brighter when the ships arrived, as if he could sense danger approaching. "How early?" Kira asked. 2 hours. Maybe less." Tor checked his communication device. "I need to report for duty or they'll start asking questions. You're leaving us here?" Tor saw the fear in her eyes and felt something twist in his chest. 3 days ago, he would have followed orders without thinking twice. Now the thought of abandoning them made him sick. "I'll be back. But first I need to buy us more time." He climbed back through the maintenance shaft and emerged into chaos. Hegemony soldiers filled the corridors, setting up scanning equipment and checking every room. Their armor was newer than Tor's, their weapons more advanced. These were elite troops from High Command's personal guard. Tor found their commander, a scarred veteran named Krex, setting up a command post in the main conference room. "Guardian Tor reporting for duty, Commander." Krex looked up from a tactical display showing the station's layout. "About time. We need a full security sweep completed before the High Command arrives. Start with the lower levels and work your way up." The lower levels. Exactly where Kira and Flint were hiding. "Understood. Commander, should I focus on any particular areas? Intelligence suggests possible contraband in the service sections. Food storage, maintenance areas, anywhere these humans might hide illegal items." Krex's voice carried the usual hegemony contempt for other species. "You know how they are. Always trying to smuggle something." Tor nodded and left before Krex could give him more specific orders. In the corridor, he quickly sent a message to his personal data pad, a fake maintenance alert that would let him access the lower levels without suspicion. But as he headed toward the maintenance shaft, another problem appeared. Security Chief Vash, an ambitious young officer who had been watching Tor's activities for weeks, stepped out of a side corridor. "Guardian Tor, I notice you've been spending a lot of time in the lower sections lately. Finding anything interesting down there?" Vash had always been trouble, too eager to please his superiors, too willing to throw others under transport ships to advance his own career. If he suspected anything about Kira and Flint, they were all in serious danger. "Routine maintenance checks," Tor replied. "Ambassador, Wraith wants everything perfect for our guests." "Of course he does. Mind if I join you? I'd hate for you to handle all that work alone." Tor's mind raced. He could not refuse without looking suspicious, but bringing Vash to the cave would be a disaster. "Actually, I was about to check the upper dining areas first. The ambassador specifically mentioned concerns about the kitchen ventilation system. It was a complete lie, but Vash nodded. Smart thinking. Can't have our important guests breathing recycled air. He paused and studied Tor's face. "You seem different lately, Tor. More focused. I like that in a fellow officer." Tor walked away before Vash could say anything else, but he felt eyes watching him as he moved through the station corridors. Paranoia was a useful survival tool, but right now it was making everything harder. He took a longer route to avoid the main security checkpoints. The station felt different with all the extra soldiers around. Even the human workers moved more carefully, as if they could sense the increased danger. In the kitchen, Tor found organized chaos. The staff was preparing for the most important dinner in the station's history, but they kept getting interrupted by security searches. Soldiers went through every cabinet and storage area looking for anything suspicious. Tor watched a human cook named Beth try to explain why she needed extra food supplies. The soldier questioning her clearly thought she was lying about something. His hand rested on his weapon while he talked. "Problems here?" Tor asked, stepping into the conversation. The soldier snapped to attention. "Guardian Tor, sir. Just checking. Food stores for security violations. Find anything?" "Nothing specific, sir. But the humans have been using more supplies than usual. Could indicate smuggling activity." Tor looked at Beth, who was trying hard not to show any emotion. He knew exactly why she had been taking extra food. Someone had to feed Flint while Kira was working her regular shifts. "Probably related to the dinner preparations," Tor said. "High Command expects the best of everything. Carry on." The soldier saluted and moved to the next area. Beth gave Tor a grateful look before returning to her work. But the exchange reminded Tor how many people could get hurt if this went wrong. Beth, the other kitchen staff, anyone who had helped Kira even in small ways. The hegemony did not believe in limiting punishment to just the guilty parties. Tor made his way to the maintenance shaft, but found two soldiers guarding the entrance. His heart sank until he recognized one of them. Kelvin, a young guard he had trained 6 months ago. "Kelvin, what are you doing down here?" "Security sweep, sir. Commander Krex wants every access point monitored during the High Command visit." "Good thinking. Any problems so far?" "No, sir. Just routine maintenance bots and some water leaks. Nothing worth reporting." Tor nodded, but his mind was working on a new problem. If soldiers were guarding all the entrances, how could he get back to Kira and Flint? The answer came from an unexpected source. Beth appeared in the corridor carrying a toolkit. "Excuse me, sirs," she said to the guards. "Maintenance called about a pressure leak in the lower tunnels. I need to check the emergency shutoff valves." It was another lie, but delivered so smoothly that both guards stepped aside. Beth caught Tor's eye for just a moment and gave the tiniest nod toward the maintenance shaft. "I should supervise," Tor said. "Pressure leaks can be dangerous during important events." "Of course, sir." Tor followed Beth into the shaft. As soon as they were out of sight, she turned to him with worried eyes. "Kira told me you might need help. How bad is it up there?" "Bad. They have scanning equipment that can detect dragons through solid rock. We need to move Flint somewhere else, but I don't know where." "Actually, you do." Beth smiled for the first time. "The old cargo bay in Section 7 has been shut down for repairs. All the systems are offline, including sensors. If we can get him there, he'll be invisible to their scans." It was a good idea, but it raised another question. "How many people know about this?" Tor asked. "Everyone who matters. The humans, I mean. We've been watching out for Kira and her little friend since day one." "You think we're the only species on this station that cares about protecting innocent creatures?" Tor stared at her. "You all know?" "We know, and we're ready to help. We just needed someone with your authority to coordinate things." Beth started, crawling toward the cave. "Turns out humans are pretty good at keeping secrets when lives are at stake." When they reached the cave, they found Kira trying to comfort Flint, who had grown noticeably larger since morning. His scales were bright enough now to light up the entire space. "We have to move," Tor said without preamble. "Now." "Where?" Kira asked. "Section 7 cargo bay. Beth will explain." Tor was already planning their route in his head. "But we need to be very careful. The station is full of soldiers and they're scanning everything." As they prepared to leave the cave, Flint made a new sound, not his usual chirp, but something deeper and more musical. The sound echoed off the stone walls and seemed to calm everyone's nerves. "He's trying to help," Kira said with wonder. "He knows we're scared and he's trying to make us feel better." Tor looked down at the young dragon and realized something important. Flint was not just a creature they were trying to save. He was becoming part of their team. And if the stories about dragon abilities were true, they might need all the help he could give them. The alarm started screaming at exactly 1400 hours. Tor was escorting Kira and Flint through a service corridor when the red lights began flashing and the station's emergency system came to life. Every speaker in New Harmony broadcast the same message in 6 different languages. Attention all personnel. Security breach detected. Station is now under full lockdown. All civilians report to designated areas immediately. Any unauthorized movement will be considered hostile activity. Kira pressed herself against the wall, holding Flint close to her chest. The dragon had gone completely still, as if he understood the danger they were all in. "What happened?" she whispered. Tor checked his communication device and felt his stomach drop. "They found dragon scales in your old hiding place. Someone must have traced the genetic markers." "How is that possible? You said the rock would block their scanners." "It did. But you lived there for 3 weeks. Scales, scent markers, shed skin cells. They had enough evidence to confirm a dragon presence on the station." The corridor filled with the sound of running boots. A squad of hegemony soldiers was heading their way, checking every door and access panel as they moved. "This way," Tor said, pulling them toward a maintenance hatch he remembered from his earlier patrols. They crawled through another cramped shaft, while the sounds of searching soldiers echoed through the station's walls. Flint stayed quiet the entire time, but Tor could feel heat radiating from his scales. The dragon was scared, and when dragons got scared, they got hot. The shaft opened into the station's main waste processing center. The smell was terrible, but it would mask their scent from the tracking equipment. Tor helped Kira and Flint down into the recycling bay. "I can't do this much longer," Kira said. Her face was pale and she looked exhausted. "Flint's getting bigger every hour. Soon he'll be too heavy for me to carry." As if to prove her point, the dragon stretched his wings for the first time since Tor had met him. They were small but growing, with membranes stretched between delicate bone structures. In a few more days, he would be large enough to fly. The cargo bay is only 2 sections away, Tor said. "We can make it." But even as he said the words, he heard new sounds from above, heavy machinery being moved into position. The distinctive hum of high-powered scanning equipment. His communication device buzzed with an incoming message from Commander Krex. "All Guardians report to command immediately. Priority Alpha." Tor looked at the message and made a decision that surprised him. He turned the device off. "What are you doing?" Kira asked. "Buying us time. They'll assume I didn't get the message because I'm in a dead zone down here. How long will that work?" "Not long enough." They moved through the waste processing center, using the large recycling units as cover. But at every turn, they could hear search teams getting closer. The hegemony was being thorough this time. They were checking areas that had never been searched before. Halfway across the center, disaster struck. A maintenance bot rolled around a corner and pointed its sensors directly at them. Before Tor could react, the machine sent out an alert signal that would bring soldiers running. But the alert never reached its destination. Instead, the bot's display screen flickered and went blank. Then it turned around and rolled away as if it had never seen them. What just happened? Kira stared after the departing machine. Tor looked down at Flint, who was glowing brighter than ever. The dragon's golden eyes seemed more alert, more intelligent than before. "I think he interfered with its programming somehow." "That's impossible. Dragons don't have that kind of ability. According to the official reports, dragons don't have any abilities except destroying things." But we both know how reliable those reports are. They reached the edge of the processing center and found their next obstacle. The corridor leading to Section 7 was full of soldiers, at least 12 of them, all armed with advanced scanning equipment. "We'll never get past them," Kira said. Tor studied the soldiers' positions and equipment. Then he looked at the station's environmental controls mounted on the wall nearby. Maybe we don't have to go past them. Maybe they'll leave on their own. He opened the environmental control panel and started adjusting settings. Within minutes, the lights in the corridor began to flicker. The air recycling system made strange noises. Temperature readings started showing dangerous fluctuations. Environmental emergency in Section 6, came the announcement over the station speakers. All personnel evacuate immediately. Maintenance teams respond to potential system failure. The soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Environmental failures could kill everyone in a section if they got bad enough. After a few minutes of discussion, they packed up their scanning equipment and headed toward the supposed emergency. "How did you know that would work?" Kira asked as they slipped into the empty corridor. "Hegemony soldiers are trained to follow procedures. Environmental emergencies always take priority over security sweeps. But what happens when they figure out it's a false alarm? Then we better be well hidden by the time they come back." The cargo bay was exactly as Beth had described it. All systems offline, sensors dark, a perfect hiding place for a growing dragon. Tor helped them inside and sealed the door behind them. The bay was huge, designed to hold massive shipping containers. Most of it was empty now, except for some old equipment covered in dust sheets. Kira found a corner where she could make a comfortable nest for Flint. "How long can we stay here?" she asked. "Not long. They'll search every bay eventually, even the offline ones." "Then what do we do?" Before Tor could answer, his communication device came back to life with an urgent message from Security Chief Vash. "Guardian Tor, report your location immediately. Commander Krex wants to see you in Conference Room Alpha right now." There was no avoiding it this time. If he failed to report, they would send troops to find him. And when they did, they would find Kira and Flint too. "I have to go," he told Kira, "but I'll try to misdirect them away from this section." "What if you don't come back?" Tor looked at her and the dragon, who was now large enough to sit up on his own. Flint watched him with those intelligent golden eyes, and Tor felt that same warm sensation he had experienced during their first meeting. "Then you'll have to trust that Beth and the others will find a way to help you. Humans seem to be very good at impossible things." He left them in the cargo bay and made his way to Conference Room Alpha, where Commander Krex was waiting with a room full of senior officers and technical specialists. Tor. "Finally, we have a situation that requires your expertise." "Of course. Commander, how can I help?" "The dragon traces we found indicate a mature specimen, not a hatchling as we first assumed. Something this size could be extremely dangerous if it feels cornered." Krex gestured to a holographic display showing the station's layout. "We need to predict its most likely hiding spots and set up containment fields accordingly." Tor studied the display and felt sick. They were planning to trap Flint like a wild animal. If they succeeded, the young dragon would spend the rest of his short life in a hegemony research facility. "Based on dragon behavior patterns," Tor said carefully, "I would focus on the upper levels. Dragons prefer high places where they can see potential threats approaching." It was a complete lie. Dragons actually preferred secure, enclosed spaces when they were scared. But Tor hoped it would keep the search teams away from the lower sections. "Interesting theory," said a voice from the back of the room. Security Chief Vash stepped forward with a data pad in his hand. "But our thermal scans suggest otherwise. We're detecting heat signatures in the lower sections that could indicate dragon presence." Tor's blood went cold. Vash had been tracking them all along. "Of course," Vash continued. "Those readings could be caused by equipment malfunctions. Environmental. Systems have been acting up all day. Strange that so many problems would start right when we're conducting our most important security operation." Commander Krex looked between Tor and Vash with growing suspicion. "Are you suggesting sabotage, Chief Vash?" "I'm suggesting that someone with high-level access has been very busy today. Someone who knows our procedures well enough to stay one step ahead of our search teams." All eyes in the room turned to Tor. He could feel the walls closing in around him, but he kept his face blank and his voice steady. "If there is a saboteur on the station, Commander, I volunteer to help track them down." Commander Krex studied Tor with the cold eyes of a predator, sizing up potential prey. The conference room had gone completely silent except for the soft hum of scanning equipment and the distant sound of soldiers searching the station. Very well. Guardian Tor, since you volunteer to help find our saboteur, you can start by explaining these. Vash activated a holographic display showing heat traces, movement patterns, and access logs. Someone with your security codes has been visiting restricted areas all week. Someone has been redirecting patrols and creating false maintenance alerts. Tor looked at the evidence and realized his time was up. There was no way to explain away the data without admitting his involvement. But maybe he could still protect Kira and Flint. I have been conducting special security sweeps at Ambassador Wraith's request, he said. Perhaps my activities appeared suspicious to someone not familiar with the details. Interesting. Krex gestured to a technician who brought up another display. Because Ambassador Wraith says he gave you no such orders. In fact, he's quite curious about your recent behavior. The trap was complete. Tor had run out of lies and excuses. But as he stood there facing the assembled officers, he heard a sound that changed everything. A low musical note that seemed to come from the station's walls themselves. It was barely audible, but it made everyone in the room pause and look around in confusion. "What was that?" asked one of the technicians. The sound came again, clearer this time. It was Flint's voice, but deeper and more powerful than before. The young dragon was calling to him across the distance, and somehow Tor understood what the call meant. "Trust me." "Seismic activity," Tor said suddenly. "Old mining stations sometimes settle on their foundations. We should evacuate to safer areas until it passes." But even as he spoke, the walls began to vibrate with a harmonic frequency that made the scanning equipment malfunction. Displays flickered and went dark. Communication devices started producing feedback loops that forced everyone to turn them off. "This is not seismic activity," Krex growled. "This is dragon song." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Every officer present had heard the stories about dragon abilities, but most thought they were legends. Now they were experiencing the reality firsthand. The harmonic frequency grew stronger, and with it came something unexpected. A feeling of peace that washed over everyone in the room. The angry tension that had filled the conference room began to fade. Several officers looked confused as if they were having trouble remembering why they had been so upset moments before. But Commander Krex was made of stronger stuff. He shook his head violently and pulled out a personal weapon. "Dragon song is a form of mental manipulation," he snarled. "Everyone put on sonic dampeners now. That creature is trying to control our minds." Tor watched the officers fumble for their protective equipment and realized this was his only chance. While they were distracted, he could escape and help Kira get Flint off the station. But first he had to create enough chaos to cover their retreat. "Computer, emergency lockdown of Conference Room Alpha," he called out, using his Guardian authority. Codes. The room's blast doors slammed shut, trapping everyone inside. Tor had maybe 10 minutes before they could override the system and break free. He ran through the station corridors as alarms blared and emergency lights flashed. Behind him, he could hear Krex's voice over the intercom system, ordering all troops to converge on his location. The cargo bay seemed impossibly far away, but Tor pushed his 4 legs harder than he ever had before. As he ran, Flint's song continued to echo through the station's walls. The dragon was getting stronger by the minute, and his abilities were starting to manifest in ways that defied everything the hegemony claimed to know about his species. When Tor reached the cargo bay, he found Kira and Flint surrounded by a group of human workers. Beth was there, along with Maintenance Chief Rick, kitchen staff Maria and Tony, and at least 6 others. They had formed a protective circle around the dragon, who was now large enough to stand on his own 4 legs. "The entire human staff is here," Kira told him breathlessly. "They came as soon as the song started. They said they couldn't ignore it anymore." Flint looked up at Tor and made a sound that was half chirp, half roar. His scales were blazing with golden light now, and his eyes held an intelligence that seemed far older than his actual age. "He's trying to tell us something," said Beth. "But we don't understand dragon language." Tor knelt down next to Flint and found himself remembering fragments of old stories from before the war. Dragons had been the galaxy's peacekeepers once. They could sense the true nature of any being they encountered. They could calm violent impulses and inspire cooperation between enemies. That was why the hegemony had really destroyed them, not because dragons were dangerous, but because they made war impossible. He's saying goodbye, Tor realized. He knows he has to leave the station, but he wants to thank everyone who helped him. "Where can he go?" asked Rick. "The whole galaxy is under hegemony control now." Before anyone could answer, the cargo bay doors exploded inward. Commander Krex stood in the smoking entrance with a squad of elite soldiers, all wearing sonic dampeners and carrying weapons designed specifically for hunting dragons. "Nobody move," Krex commanded. "You are all under arrest for harboring an enemy of the state." The humans pressed closer together around Flint, who was growing brighter by the second. His song had stopped, but the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. "Stand down, Guardian Tor," Krex continued. "You have been relieved of duty. Surrender the dragon and we might show mercy to your human accomplices." Tor stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and the group behind him. "I cannot do that, Commander." "Cannot or will not?" "Both." Tor drew his own weapon, even though he was outnumbered 10-1. "These humans showed me something I had forgotten. What it means to protect innocent life instead of destroying it." Krex laughed coldly. "Innocent? That creature is a weapon of mass destruction. Its song can control minds across an entire star system. In the wrong hands, it could topple governments. Or it could stop wars before they start," Tor replied. "Maybe that's what the galaxy really needs." The standoff stretched for long seconds while both sides aimed weapons at each other. Then Flint did something that changed everything. He stepped out from behind the protective circle of humans and walked toward Commander Krex. The dragon was still young, but he moved with dignity and purpose. When he reached the middle of the cargo bay, he sat down and looked directly at the hegemony commander. Then he began to sing again. This time, the song was different, softer, sadder, but also filled with hope. It told the story of a species that had lived in harmony with the galaxy for millions of years. It spoke of cities where different races learned from each other instead of fighting. It painted pictures of a future where strength was measured by what you could protect instead of what you could destroy. One by one, the hegemony soldiers lowered their weapons. Even through their sonic dampeners, they could feel the truth in Flint's song. They remembered why they had joined the military in the first place, to protect their people, not to conquer others. Commander Krex fought against the song's influence longer than anyone else. His face twisted with rage and confusion as he struggled to maintain his hatred in the face of Flint's message of peace. This is mind control," he gasped. I will not be controlled by—" But eventually, even Krex's weapon fell from his hands. He stared at Flint with wonder instead of anger, as if seeing a dragon clearly for the first time in his life. The song faded, leaving the cargo bay in complete silence. "We were wrong," Krex whispered. "We were so wrong about everything." Tor watched the transformation with amazement. In the space of a few minutes, Flint had done what years of warfare could not accomplish. He had shown his enemies the truth about his species and given them a chance to choose a different path. "What happens now?" asked Kira. Tor looked around the cargo bay at humans and aliens standing together without fear or hatred. He thought about the choice that lay before all of them: continue the old ways of conquest and destruction, or build something new and better. "Now we send a message to every world in the galaxy," he said. "We tell them that dragons have returned, and with them the possibility of real peace. Flint made a happy chirping sound and spread his wings wide. They were strong enough now to carry him wherever he needed to go. But Tor had a feeling the young dragon would not be traveling alone. The galaxy was about to discover that humans made very good guardians indeed.